All right, guys, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. Jesus is back for another. We're going to another horror series today, and I kind of wish that this series was in, or like this specific day was in, like the Halloween time, because that would have been perfect. But unfortunately, we don't get that date again until November, and at that point, I feel like people have already like passed like the horror or scary movie vibe, I guess you can say. Now everyone at that point is worried about buying a turkey last minute. But we talked about Halloween. Literally, we talked about Halloween. You go back to that episode where we had our friend Kevin on the show, and we kind of talked about Hannibal Lecter. We do need to talk about Freddy Krueger. Maybe for the fall of this year, we should. I think we just forgot about it back in 2024. I think we just did. But today we're gonna actually talk about the Friday the 13th series. Now, for the record, yes, I'm actually going to have to plan to release this on Friday the 13th because I know I talked about it the last time why I didn't release it like February 13th. And it's just because that week off, as I said, it was just some family stuff. And then the second week, I wanted, because I didn't get a chance to talk about a Valentine's episode, I wanted to do that. So, yeah, but luckily we got another Friday the 13th. We got three Friday the 13th of 2026. Again, I kind of wish we had one in October because that would have been perfect. But you know what? Let's just leave it at this. But so Friday the 13th is obviously it's called the Jason series, the Jason franchise, because Jason is synonymous with the entire series. I know there was a show called Friday the 13th, the series. It has nothing to do with Jason Camp Crystal Lake. It's almost like the Halloween 3, but for a television series. However, that wasn't even the plan. The plan was it was supposed to be called the show was supposed to be called something different. But the creators were like, nah, let's just call it Friday the 13th because we already got a Freddy Krueger show happening. Let's just do this, even though, again, no Jason, no Crystal Lake, nothing. It's just basically a bunch of people finding stolen objects that are cursed. That's what the Friday the 13th show is about. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is the famous hockey mask killer, Jason, though not hockey mask since the beginning, because that's what we're going to get into. So I think most of us, probably around Jesus and I's age, most of us probably are familiar or probably have heard of Jason for the first time. In the same way, we've probably heard of Freddy Krueger for the first time. Well, for me personally, that was how I got introduced to Jason, was from Freddy versus Jason. But how did you, if you can remember far back, how did you get familiar with Jason?
Yeah, so the very first time I ever encountered it was with Freddy versus Jason of all things. So like I remember as a kid when I was hanging out with my cousins, they would put on some scary movies sometimes on TV. And at the time, that's where I first got introduced to Freddy Krueger, but also got introduced to in his solo film, and then got introduced to Jason through the sequel that was like Freddy versus Jason. So it's honestly like those two just coming together where I guess the first time I got to know what Crystal Lake was, I got to know who he was, and then especially, Pamela. And I mean, of course, we'll probably get into that soon. But yeah, that was my first experience around 7 years of age.
Yeah, it came out, I think, in 2003, I believe, or three or four. So, yeah, I think how we're going to tackle this is how we tackle Halloween. So, this will probably, I don't know if this is going to tie for the longest episode ever, or if Halloween will forever forever hold the longest episode ever, because our bonus episode over the summer actually came pretty close. But yeah, so the difference is that Halloween had 13 films. This one only has 10. No, almost 13. This one has 12. The thing is that like the Friday the 13th series is more, oh man, like there's more I wouldn't say more style than substance. There's more of nostalgia than there is story, I guess you can say. Like, put it to perspective. When they created Friday the 13th, I guess we can start from the beginning. The producers had openly admitted that they were ripping off Halloween. Like, they've admitted that, yeah, we're making our own like version of Halloween, but we're calling it Friday the 13th. We have the teens that are going to get slaughtered. We have a story. So yeah, that's like you can go on like, what's the Netflix documentary series called? I think it's called The Films That Made Us. And it's the third season, which is funny because that's how I got started, because Netflix for some reason flipped the order. So what I thought when I was watching the first season was actually the third season. If you watch the episode about Friday the 13th, they will tell you, yes, we were making a legit, almost a ripoff of Halloween because of how big Halloween was. And this was actually a year before Halloween 2 came out. And Halloween 2 was actually the response of Friday the 13th. So yeah. And for the record, like I think there's always people have always been asking, are we ever going to get like a Jason versus Michael? Unfortunately, no, for a lot of reasons. One of them being IP, and then the other one being that for a long time, since 2010, probably 2009, we've had that lawsuit, which we'll also get into later on. But this series is going to start coming back, like I think this year or maybe next year. They haven't fully confirmed it yet, but I know we're supposed to get the Crystal Lake series on Peacock that stars Linda Cardellini of all people. I'm not trashing on Linda Cardellini. I mean, come on, I love the Scooby-Doo movies. I'm saying I'm just surprised to see her playing Pamela Voorhees in this, in this show. I don't know if we're gonna get it this year or next year because they've been pushing it off a lot. But also, this is supposed to be like the start of the Jason universe, not like Marvel or DC. I mean, like we're probably gonna get more Jason movies again. So it's gonna be like almost with Godzilla, how like we've got all these Godzilla movies, and now I think we're gonna get more Michael movies and Jason movies. We're still waiting for a Freddy movie, by the way. We got too many damn Scream movies already, and there's only 7 of them. But
We're about to get another one that's a straight parody of it.
oh yeah, dude, yeah. So I'm ready for that one. I will talk about Scream eventually, guys, because I just saw the new one not too long ago, actually yesterday, of course, but or the yesterday of the recording is what I mean. But yeah, I'll probably do one before we end the season, but because it's going to be 30 years since the series came out, and which is ironic, I'm going to be 30 this year, just to go to the beginning. So it opens almost the same way as Halloween did, where you get a POV shot of a killer reaching for a weapon. And instead of one teenage victim, we get 2. And it's like, it kind of gives you like the mentality of like what these camper or counselors were thinking, because literally in a segment before they were singing Kumbaya, my Lord. And then the next they go off to do the unholy. That's how I like to call it sometimes, the unholy. But like they notice like somebody's like approaching them, and this teen boy is like, oh, we weren't doing anything, and he gets stabbed semi sort of off screen. Because like if you know shots, like the medium, I believe a medium close-up shot is from like the chest up. It's been a while since I tackled this, but pretty much it's kind of on and off screen when you see the kill. And then you see like this girl, like she's screaming, she's trying to get away, and then you get the freeze frame, and then Friday the 13th. Now, this event happened in 1958. Yeah, 1958. Now we're on Friday, June 13th, 1980. Why specifically that? Because that's actually when the movie was released in 1980, June 13th, 1980. So, and Sean S. Cunningham really made sure this was actually released on Friday the 13th. Sean S. Cunningham being the director, Tom Savini being the makeup artist, which now he's a big icon in the horror industry. But yeah. And do you remember who the writer was again?
I believe Victor Miller.
Victor Miller. Okay. I was trying to remember if it was Victor Miller or Steve Miner, but I think Steve Miner was the director of the other 2 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now I got it. But anyway, it's Camp Crystal Lake, which is the camp that we're introduced in the beginning. They're reopening. We have Alice, who's our final girl, and we have all the camp counselors that are training. It's a very small group, I guess, because like when you're restarting something, you got to have like a small crew before you can go big. But it's a slow burn from like after the opening sequence to when the kills actually start happening. Like we're just like introduced to characters, just like setting up the camp and all that. And then the kills start like right when like the girl that's supposed to be the cook takes a ride from a hitchhiker, or not a hitchhiker, or she's hitchhiking. And then the driver like is being suspicious. We don't see the driver this entire time, but like she gets scared to the point where she jumps out of the car, but she gets murdered. I don't know if I could say how the kills go, because I don't know like if Apple or Spotify or YouTube are going to be like, yeah, you can't be too graphic on this one, even if it's audio that I'm saying. But
yeah, just saying, just nowadays you have so much censorship that even just accidentally saying just one cuss word will probably lead it into it's been demonetized or whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll try to be kind of cleanish, but sometimes like some of these kills are very iconic that sometimes I might not even be able to try to censor it. But anyway, you get the cook that gets killed, and then everybody else starts getting killed. You get the famous scene, or infamous really, of like Kevin Bacon. Yeah, the Kevin Bacon And it's not like this was his first role or anything. He's actually done a small acting gigs. He came out in Animal House, which is the like considered one of the OG like college sex comedy films before, you know, American Pie and all that, or Porky's, which is funny because when we did our Christmas episode, what I forgot to tell y'all was that the guy who directed Porky's directed Black Christmas and A Christmas Story. So that's kind of a funny like filmography for that guy.
Kind of reminds me like it's like its own trilogy, kind of like what's it called? Like Shaun of the Dead kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Like a duology. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so the killings start happening. Again, you get the Kevin Bacon kill with the arrow through the throat. It's the most iconic one of them of that first film, and one of the most iconic in the trilogy. And then you get a girl with an axe, and then some people get killed by arrows, but we don't really see like the kill happen. And sometimes people get thrown. Some girl gets thrown through the window, and again, we don't see the kill happen. And by the way, the windows and doors are going to get broken a lot throughout this series. And Alice is just the first one. Is like, or not the first. Well, she's the first final girl of this series, but she's the one that's seeing all of this. And when she runs out, the car that picked up that hitchhiker shows up. And I know for everyone who's never seen the very very first film, and but they know of Jason because Jason is synonymous with this series. I was surprised because like I already knew about the series before I ever watched it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other folks do. And I know same as you. When we saw Friday the 13th for the first time, and we already knew who Jason was, what we found out was Jason was not the killer this entire in the first film.
Yeah.
It was his mother, Pamela. Yeah, so she introduces herself as Mrs. Voorhees because Pamela wasn't named yet until I think the next couple of films. But like she explains that she was the person that murdered the counselors in the opening sequence. It's also implied that there were other camp counselors that were killed. So I think we're gonna get more of that in the series. And then she's saying like she's killing everybody now because she doesn't want the camp to reopen because of what happened to her son, Jason. Jason is involved in this first film, but he's not the killer. But you kind of already know the origin that Jason was drowned. But the story basically is that Jason drowned at 11 years old. Supposedly drowned because like as soon as the second film hits, all that just gets thrown out the window. But basically she's saying like she doesn't want another kid getting drowned or getting killed and stuff like that. So that's why she does what she can to make sure the camp doesn't reopen. And she might, and I was preparing myself for this like a couple of nights ago, she might either, and these are two completely different psychotic analysis. So bear with me, guys. I know the difference, or I know there's differences, but what I'm about to say, some say she might have schizophrenia, or others say she might have DID, dissociative identity disorder. I'm a little bit more with DID. Or I know a lot more about with DID. I don't know it too much about schizophrenia, but the reason why people think DID is because she's always like having that voice of saying like, "Kill her, mommy, kill her." I won't, Jason. But the reason why I lean back is because like that's not. I don't think that's really how DID works. You don't just like voice a person that I guess you're trying to be. You kind of
You
shift.
embody that person entirely.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's like a small amount of DID. I don't know. This was 1980, so people I guess weren't too familiar. But I also don't lean in the schizophrenia side. I think she's just like, I think all the trauma is just getting to her head that she thinks sometimes she can beat Jason. It's almost like with Psycho, you know, with where like Norman is the killer, but it's not Norman, it's Norman's mother, but Norman's mother already died. So he like wears the clothes and like tries to talk how the mother talks. But that one's a little bit more of a DID situation. And even an Oedipus complex situation if you ever dive into the lore of Psycho, which maybe we could talk about one of these days. But yeah, so Alice is the final girl. She survives another famous death in this film is she decapitates Mrs. Voorhees and then she goes off to the lake. When the authorities arrive, she's like still on that little raft, or not raft, kayak or a canoe. For a guy who's worked at a camp, he doesn't know his boats well. But she's on the canoe, and then you get the famous shot of little boy Jason coming out of the water, grabbing her and grabbing her into the water. But then she wakes up in the hospital and she's like, "Did y'all see Jason?" And he's like, "We didn't see any boy with you out there." And she's saying then he's probably still out there. And I thought like because they end with a shot of the lake, I thought Jason was gonna come out, make like one last final scare, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
They probably
now,
didn't want to. They were like, okay, maybe just the one jump scare already happened. So doing
yeah,
it again, and the audience is already anticipating it. You know.
yeah. So now we move on to a year later, and I think it's a year later in universe. Alice is still having some trauma. I don't know if it's a year later or if it's a couple of months later in universe. In our universe, yes, it's a year later. It came out in 1981, the same year that Halloween 2 came out, which is also funny because that year The Shining came out with the 13th, and both were nominated at the Razzies, the
Oh,
very first Razzies, actually. But the guy who created the Razzies rescinded, or oh man, what's the word? I guess he stopped counting the Shining awards because the Shining wasn't really that big back in 1980. But since he saw the impact, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna rescind all of this. This doesn't exist anymore. But that's just a little side note. But anyway, maybe I have ADHD, guys. I don't know. But anyway, in universe, Alex is still trying to deal with everything that happened the year before. And to make the film go longer, and you see this in the first four or like the next three films, to make the film go longer, they just give you a recap of like just showing you the edited footages from the previous films. So that's what usually happens in the beginning of the 2, 3, and 4. But when she finds the cat and she wanted to, I guess she was trying to give the cat milk or something. She opens the fridge door and sees the decapitated head of Mrs. Voorhees. And then Jason comes from behind her, and this is where Jason is the killer now. And then puts the ice pick to her dimple. That's what I've been told. But apparently, the tool that they use to like it has a retractable like point, so it looks like it's going through her head, but really it's not. It's just a point going into the like the little handle. Well, it didn't retract that well, so like the pain, yeah, that's actually the actress getting actual like that pain in her dimple. Yeah, that was real.
Wow. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, well, this happens a lot in horror films, especially like in the Scream universe. Like, what was it? Skeet Ulrich, like his Billy screams because he gets stabbed with an umbrella pin. That actually happened, and while
Wow.
recording, Nev Campbell missed the mark where she was actually supposed to stab Skeet Ulrich, and Skeet Ulrich is actually screaming in pain. Same thing with what was her name from The Exorcist? The mom, not Linda Blair,
No,
Ellen Burstyn.
no. Yeah, there you go.
Ellen
Ellen,
Burstyn, or
Ellen
like
Burstyn.
when she screams in pain after like being thrown from Reagan, that was
Yeah.
real. Like this happens a lot in horror films, by the way. But anyway, we fast forward in universe 5 years after the first film, I believe, and a new camp is reopening. It's not on it's on Crystal Lake, but it's not Camp Crystal Lake or Camp Blood is what the camp was supposed to be called. It's a new camp they're building about a mile or two away from Crystal Lake, and it's a new set of characters and counselors, Jenny and Paul, which are our two survivors, and everybody else is just the victims, you can say. But same thing, Jason kills them all off one by one. There was a scene that it wasn't cut, but it was edited. It involved the deaths of those two teens was the spear through the bed.
Yeah.
So before that, you see like a top being thrown at a guy. Well, there was supposed to be nudity, but the girl lied and said she was 18. After they're recording and doing the post-production stuff, they find out that she was actually 16. So they couldn't reshoot it again. So what they decided to do was just like, in a way, like in 1980 style, zoom in on the frame on while they're editing it. So it like cuts everything out. That doesn't really change a lot, to be honest with you. But one thing that comes in handy about Jenny, and also why she's kind of like a better final girl than Alice, even in my opinion, is because like they bring up something that she's studying child psychology. And like when the story of Jason becomes a myth, basically they say that Jason drowned but didn't die. You get what I mean? Like, because they said his body wasn't recovered. So that's why like you kind of see a grown-up Jason. It still doesn't explain the kid Jason at the end of the first film. That's literally like what everybody, Sean, Victor, Steve, even, and Tom, they're all like, there's no way you can make sense around that. And they still can't. But to the point, when they bring up like that Jenny was studying child psychology, when they found Jason, well, once they find all the bodies, but they come across Jason. Now, Jason, yes, is the killer in this film, but guess what? He does not have his hockey mask. Again, something everybody kind of like when you watch the film for the first time, you already know Jason because the hockey mask is the most famous thing about him. And when you see part one, you watch part one and you're like, Jason's not the killer. Then you watch part two, it's like, okay, Jason is the killer. Wait, he doesn't have the hockey mask. he has a sack over his head, and all that fumbling and all that accident. Yeah, that was again real. Steve Dash, R.I.P. By the way, they found a pillowcase. They're like, put an eye hole through this and just put it on. And
And
it
and
was
you know what's funny about that? I wanted to bring up something because I don't know what came first. I gotta actually look back into research or history about it. But have you ever heard of the there's a film that came out years ago, like in the 80s, around that time or 70s, and it was called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. There was also a remake that came out years back too. But
mm,
it's about the text that I'm gonna say this wrong, so I apologize. But it's like the Arkansas killer.
mm,
And if you look him up, the way that witnesses reported him, like those who actually survived, he looks almost just like Jason from part two. He's got
um,
an actual pillowcase or like I guess a sack of potato, like it's a white bag with one eye hole and or two eye holes, I mean. But he's got his overalls and stuff. So he I don't know if when they were making the costume design for this film, if they actually took inspiration from these real life events that happened in that city, or it was more like what came first, like chicken or the egg? Did Jason, the movie, come out, the part two come out that inspired this real life event, or did the real life event inspire what design they chose for him in this movie? So that's kind of interesting.
yeah. Who knows, really? Because it's like, and I cannot get this out of my head. So when somebody was reviewing, I think it was Demi, when they were reviewing part two, I swear to God, they actually showed that clip from Django and Chain when they were starting the clan for the first time. And then you just see like the one guy just going, I can't see sack shit in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot get that out of my head now because it kind of makes sense a bit, but still. But yeah, to the point, like, yeah, Steve Dash was getting hurt a lot. And it's funny how I think I told you this, how Steve Dash actually got this role. It's because first thing with Jason they actually shot wasn't with Steve Dash. It was a guy named Warrington Gillette. Now, Warrington Gillette was the same age as most of the cast. So he's actually considered like the youngest actor to play Jason at that time. And the first thing they shot was the ending was Jason like jumping out the window and grabbing Janice. Wait, is it Janice? I think so. But yeah, that was the first thing they shot. The thing is that like Warrington Gillette really, I think he actually wanted Paul Holt, like the role of Paul Holt. He didn't get it, so he did whatever he can to be in like Friday Part Two, and he lied saying, "I'm a stuntman. I'm studying stunt." And they're like, "Okay." So they're like, "Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is you're gonna like literally jump out of this window and grab Janet." The window didn't break that much or at all. Every time they cut, the window wouldn't break, and he's like getting hurt. And to the point, like after they shot that scene, they all admittedly said, "Yeah, so I actually don't do stunts." And they're like, "Yeah, so we're gonna have to go to a different direction."
Hmm.
And they were just trying to find somebody, and Steve Dash came into the picture. And it's funny because it's like this was at Texas Frightmare back in 2018. It was a full Jason panel, and he was talking about how he got the role, and he was like he was talking to his friend, I guess, who was one of the casting agencies that worked on the film. It's like, hey, we need like somebody who knows how to do stunts. And Steve's like, why are you asking me? It's like, well, one, this guy's a real POS, and well, y'all know what POS means. And Steve was like, well, I'm a POS too. What do y'all want me to do about it? But yeah, it's just fun. You gotta watch that if you ever give a chance to. But Steve Dash was one of those Jasons I wish I met. I came close multiple times, but if I would have known, and I had the money at that time, to be honest with y'all, if I would have known, I would have taken a picture with him. But I had the memory of kind of just lurking around his table, so I'll take that. But anyway, as the movie kind of like goes with the child psychology thing, how she says like Jason didn't get a chance to be with his mother, didn't have a great childhood, so she puts on like Pamela Voorhees sweater and like tries to make herself kind of similar, but not really. So she's like, Jason, mother is talking to you. Jason, yeah, it was working for a moment until Jason saw the severed head. And just when he thought he was going to kill Janine, Paul Holtz came and stopped it. And then they put a machete. I think they put a machete to his shoulder.
That or his neck.
It's one of those two. And then they unmask him. The unmasking is off screen, but then, as I said earlier, was him jumping out the window. You see his face, and I feel like I swear I stand by this. I feel like the makeup was also the reason why he had a hard time trying to go through that. I guess because of all that prosthetic, but that could just be me. But there's also machineries, and even back then, you had the same technology some people use now to help with the like breakaway windows and doors and all that. But sometimes stuff doesn't work in your favor, which is another thing. But in the end, Warrington Gillette actually got the credit. And that was actually by Steve Dash's choice. He's like, yeah, I don't want like to have that faith. One, he didn't have faith in the movie. That's another thing. Two, he was just like, I just don't want that, like that fame and stuff like that. So that's why Warrington Gillette has the credited role of Jason, even though he was only there for like those couple of seconds of screen time. And then part 3 carries on from part 2. Now, here's the thing. Part 2, 3, and 4 are actually over one weekend. Part 2 is actually on a Friday the 13th. Most of these films don't really take place on Friday the 13th, especially like 3, 4, and I believe 5. Yeah. And of course, Jason X, Jason Goes to Hell, and Freddy versus Jason. But anyway, can you just like explain part 3 for me real quick?
Yeah, so I'm gonna see if I can remember what of our first time. So for
Well, we
those
watched
who
it
at the
together a
time,
couple of months ago.
yeah, for those who may be into like the horror genre and must have a good kind of history watching this and knowing what these things are. Well, back in the day, even nowadays, I mean, if you go see a movie, I mean, half the time the spectacle for some people is wow, like what can you do better? Well, instead of just being at a theater screen, you could have 3D glasses. So back in the 80s, they had just had a resurgence in 3D movies, and we were getting like movies of left and right, and specifically just like these were more focused on horror films because they figured, hey, if you're already scared as it is, peeing your pants inside the theater. I mean, what better yet than to have like the killer or someone or whatever you're watching come at you or makes it look like it's after you. So that's basically the whole premise of Friday the 13th Part 3. But I'll go into details here in a bit. So the idea was they wanted to make a 3D film for the third film because, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? It's part 3. And just like the movie, it literally begins with the ending shot of part 2 with Janine and Paul subdue Jason for the meantime. And then they go ahead and take their leave. And then it goes into the opening credits for part 3. And you have more of this different group of campers or teenagers, right? And they're all gonna go hang out at I don't know if it's Crystal Lake. I don't remember. I'm trying to think, because I know it's just a campsite. They're all gonna try to hang out because they wanna be independent, free from their parents and such. There's a scene specifically where like I think there's a character that's like the Mexican side of the family where her mother is saying, no, I don't want you to go. And they're speaking in Spanish. Like they're getting angry at each other. So, they ask her like, hey, what's that about? And they're like, yeah, just some other stuff. So, but for anybody who's watching these films, this is kind of like where they start giving us more of the archetypes. Like at this point, they're like, forget it. Let's have a stoner in there. Let's have a gang, a black gang in there, like a Black Panther kind of a way of doing it. Let's have the nerdy kid, or at least the one that like likes to joke around and make jokes, and so forth. So all of these guys, they go to camp, and as it is, well, they don't know that it's Jason that's living in this area. So the time Jason, like throughout this film, you can see him in close shots, right? Like you're not really like, you don't see his face or anything like that. You're just seeing his arm or his shoulder just like stalking them. And what's it called? Like one by one, you get to interact with the characters. Like the characters interact with people like when they go to a gas station to get like fuel, because some of them are like kind of freaked out at this point. They want to leave or head out. You have like them interacting with this biker gang. And I mean, you got two black people and, just a white guy just chilling there with them. And they kind of mess around and do some hijinks with that gang. So that gang wants revenge. They go ahead and, without letting them know, they start stealing their gas from the only other source of ride that they can have to and from camp. So as it's all going on, Jason is seeing all these people interact in this camp, either at the lake, either at the campsite, or at a barn. Because there's a barn that gets introduced into this third film. So anyway, one by one, he goes out of his way to go ahead and take all these guys out. Ladies and guys, is it called? I can't remember. You have, I forget the final girl's name, but
Chris.
Chris?
Yeah, it's Chris.
Okay, appreciate it. So Chris, she at one point in the story, she basically is talking to her boyfriend, like reminiscing of a time where she was actually at the same campsite, and she always had a very bad uncomfortable feeling of coming back to it because she actually met Jason. She saw this like grotesque hunk of a man that was trying to like take her, or I don't know, take advantage of her. And like she, you can see a little bit in the background as it's happening because she's reminiscing it. So you can kind of see what's being shot, but you can't see his face still. You're just seeing her run away from him as he's like approaching her. So that's a reason why like Chris is like not really comfortable being here, but she has her boyfriend. And her boyfriend tells her it's fine, it's gonna be all good. Like that was years ago, not gonna happen again. So of course, all this while this is all going on, her friends are actually getting killed like one by one. So by the end of it, his her boyfriend also dies. It's a pretty gnarly shot. Like he's like grabbing him. Jason is basically like grabbing him by the head and what's it called? It just squishes him, like kind of like if you ever seen Blade Runner when you have like Roy trying to like squish the eyes out of, not trying to be as grotesque as possible, but just you know what I mean, like just like we smush his head into, and so like the eye kind of comes out of its socket and it's 3D, so of course like it's gonna come and like look like it's hitting you at the audience. So anyway, pretty gnarly shot. The point is, I am forgetting the one crucial point, which I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. So before her boyfriend dies, you have this, like I mentioned, one of the friends is like a jokester. He plays a lot of pranks on all the other guys. He's trying to actually hit on a girl, but he doesn't know how to do it because all he knows is to make pranks, and he thinks, "Oh, if I can play a prank on this girl, maybe she'll get to know me better, right?" So, of course, it's not working out, but she wants it to work. It's just he keeps acting up. So, eventually at some point she's like, "Hey, I need some space." So, he goes out and he goes into the barn. He actually has, like, the joke that he tried to do was hide in the water, or at least in the lake, as she's trying to like trying to just take a view for the field or whatever it is. And he comes out of the lake and scares her. And he's got the mask, and it's the infamous mask that everybody knows. And he's got like a spear or a harpoon, I think, one of the two. But anyway, when they have their space and alone time, he goes into the barn. He gets slashed by Jason, and that's all I'm going to say. And that's when the person that he was trying to flirt with, she's still in the lake. She actually ends up dropping, I guess, one of the photos. She had a photo in a wallet, so she drops that, and she wants to go and collect it because, I mean, she doesn't want the photo to go missing. So as she's trying to get into the lake without, like, what's it called? Without jumping into the lake, she's taking off her shoes and trying to be as careful as possible, trying to grab a photo. Jason is on the balcony, like approaching, and he's at a good distance though. So he notices, and of course, he's wearing the mask that her boyfriend had on. So he thinks it's him. So he's telling him, "Why are you staring over there? Why are you pointing that thing to me?" So it's probably that's probably the best shot of the whole film. But he like shoots the harpoon, and if you're watching this in 3D, like you would know what I mean. Like it like looks like it's headed straight towards you, and then it kills her. So anyway, that whole scene right there, that whole segment from them not getting along because of the prank that he wore, that's how we know how Jason ends up wearing that mask. And that's the mask that's the mask that they decided to do. It's the hockey mask. And they're like, okay, well, the rest of history is said for the franchise. Now that I mentioned that, I'm going to go right to the ending. So Chris notices that all of her friends and boyfriend are dead. So, she has a little scuttle with Jason because Jason's like, "Oh, you're the last one." But of course, she's the final girl. She makes it alive. And the funny thing is that they just do like a straight copy paste from the first film where Alice is in the canoe or the kayak. And Chris is also there. So she wakes up in the morning. She expects Jason to not be alive because, she basically just hanged him throughout that whole segment before, she decided to just wait for authorities to arrive in the morning. So she's over there. She wakes up and she sees Jason without his mask. So she starts freaking out because he sees her and he's going to go after her. So you can see that she's trying to like push the kayak away or whatever, use the oars and stuff. But as soon as he gets out, he just comes out of the shed. He turns around, he's gone. So that's for the audience. It's like, oh, okay, so it's probably a dream, it's probably a nightmare. Then as soon as that happens, just like the first film, you have what appears to be Pamela Voorhees come out of the water and drag her in. But then again, it's another gotcha because she wakes up and this time it's the authorities helping her leave. It's kind of like she's leaving all kind of crazy because, she didn't want to go to the camp in the first place because she already knew who Jason was. And having to go through that whole thing again at like such a, at an older age, seeing all of her friends die, seeing the same person that tried to stalk her all those years ago, and now knowing that he doesn't know if he's even dead or alive is what, worries her. So she kind of gets all manic, like kind of crazy like and such. But by that point, the end of the film, you can just see that the camera is like shooting towards the lake. because who knows if Jason's still there or if it's Pamela, or what we were just seeing was all just some nightmare for Chris. And that's about it.
Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna lean into the fourth film because I was trying to figure out how am I gonna divide this up because the fourth, fifth, and sixth, I like to call them the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, are one thing, but then again, the fourth film is called the final chapter. Then it goes to a next. So I had to figure out like how am I gonna divide all this up because there's many ways you can. So I'm just gonna go into the fourth film. And it does, and just like the other films, it gives you recaps of the other. As I keep mentioning, they give you recaps of the other films. It takes place literally moments after the third film. This time, Jason's played by Ted White. I think he passed away like 2 years ago. In the previous one, he was played by Richard Brooker. So Richard Brooker got the honor of playing Jason with the hockey mask. And every time Steve Dash wrote, the one who played Jason in part two, every time he gave an autograph, he said the real Jason. But Ted White is considered like him, Derek Mears, and of course Kane Hodder, who we'll eventually talk about, are considered like the top three like favorite Jasons. And that's because like Ted White was actually is a legend in the stunt industry. He was always a stuntman, mainly in Texas, and he did stunts for Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, a lot of folks. So that's why people kind of like him because he was built to play Jason. This is one of the first films that has Tommy Jarvis. And he's played by Corey Feldman. At this point, we already know who Corey Feldman is. He's done a lot of films like The Goonies, The Lost Boys, like many great movies, especially back in the 80s. And then obviously, like his story, like the unfortunate of his story, like how his tragic experience with Hollywood. You get what I mean? I had a hard time trying to put that out there, but this was like one of his early works. It's kind of in the same area, like where part three was, but again, a couple of miles away. I think Crystal Lake is like one big lake, and there's sections of like where camps and campsites are. And then Tommy Jarvis and his family are right next door to a rental house with all these other teens. One of them being played by Crispin Glover from Back to the Future, which I think he's under some heat right now. Well, as of this recording, he is. Yeah, Jason goes after like this group of teens, and here's the weird thing: like sometimes you don't see him, and then sometimes you do. I think that's why people like him is because of like the way it's directed, and plus how like darkly lit, I guess you can say, like how tonally dark it is. That's why I think people lean to this one a lot more. He kills all these kids, and then there's this one hitchhiker who turns out to be the brother of this girl from the second film, the girl that was speared with her boyfriend in the second movie. He's trying to look for Jason, and this is where like some lore and all that starts getting into the story. We don't get a lot of lore until like part 9. Part 9 with Jason Goes to Hell, but he just wants revenge. That's pretty much what it is. He doesn't get it because Jason kills him, like literally in the basement. He's literally yell out, "He's killing me!" While I think Jason hits him with like a shovel or something, like a little small rake, something. But like you get all these famous shots. Yeah, so Tommy Jarvis kind of goes with the Janine route, which is like he shaves his head and tries to go look at Jason and be like, "Jason, don't you remember what you were?" You get what I mean? Because Jason was deformed as a kid. He was deformed. I was trying to say deformability, but I don't think that's a word. Yeah, he had a facial deformity, which is pretty much why like he was always getting picked on as a kid. And Tommy's sister is like trying to protect him. And oh my gosh, Jason like gets hit with everything. He gets hit with a TV. I think he like goes through a door. He goes through a window. He goes through another door. I think I'm like, geez, this is why people like Ted White so much. And then with all that distraction, Tommy Jarvis's sister, and by the way, it's the only time we ever get like Tommy Jarvis's sister. I forgot her name, by the way, because like she doesn't die in the movie, but we don't see her ever again. We just get Tommy again. But she ends well, I guess she kind of ends Jason, but we don't for sure know. Because some people think Tommy ended Jason. So here's what I mean. Jason.
Sorry, I was gonna say her sister's name is Trish.
Trish. Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing. In these movies, Jason is like not supernatural. He's just, I guess you could say, a tough guy, like with Michael Myers in the Halloween movies. He doesn't become supernatural until the sixth film. This one, I think maybe, like, here's what my story would be. I think his deformity gives him thick skin, like actual thick skin, which is why you can try to like stab him or hit him with an axe and stuff like that, because his skin is so thick that it doesn't affect him that much. So
the opposite of Mr. Glass.
yeah. Oh yeah. But here's what the thing is: Trish like gets Jason's machete and hits him on the side of the head where the eye should be. By the way, it's a sick shot because I think Tom Savini came back for this work. Well, Darrow told us the last chapter, which obviously money talks. They don't. It's not the last chapter or the final chapter. But Tommy sees like Jason's arm kind of twitch a bit, but I think that's just like when you die, sometimes like your nerves are still there. So it could be that, or it could be Jason coming back. We don't know. I like to think it's the nerves, if we're going like on a grounded level. But he overreacts, grabs the machete, and just like starts whacking, saying "die, die, die." But yeah, that's how the final chapter ends. It's just those two that survive. But they wanted to continue on. I mean, come on, money talks. We got 12 of these films, but they were like, let's actually continue it with Tommy Jarvis's story. But we'll tell you in a little bit. I'm going to take a little break right now. All right. And we're back. So, as I said earlier, with the final chapter, was not the final chapter. They should have just called it part 4, to be honest with you. But they were like, you know what? Let's continue. But let's go with a different, with Tommy Jarvis. Tommy Jarvis is, I think, aside from Alice, it's the real remaining or recurring character in this series that's not Jason. Now, if they ever want to do a legacy sequel, it just depends on how this lawsuit goes or like how it all went down. If they chose to do that route, they should do it with Tommy Jarvis, with Corey Feldman coming back. I think he said he's actually open to play the character again, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? It might not happen, which is something I've come to accept because that's life. But he does come back in this next film, but they wanted to get an older person to play Tommy Jarvis, so they got somebody else. I forgot his name, but I think it's Shepard. That's like in his name. But he does is what it is basically like we still have Corey Feldman as like Tommy Jarvis, but then it takes place years later when Tommy is already grown up. And Tommy has PTSD from, the attacks because he was really young. So he goes into I guess you can say a group home for like troubled teens, for like anybody that's like, in the system or like just getting into trouble with the law, or foster care for like older people. And he's in this house and he just doesn't fit well with all these people. And it's been a while since I've seen this, so forgive me. I might not explain the entire storyline or kills or details. But what I can tell you is that what sets it off was that I think this kid, his name is Joey. He's kind of like Tommy. He's like the outcast. He's trying to help, but people just bully him. He was talking to this one kid. I think he's like a real dangerous kid, but he was like axing some log. I'm sorry, chopping log. Why did I say axing log? Joey's just trying to have a conversation with him. And I don't know, Joey mouths off. He walks away. And the kid hits him in the back with an axe, killing him. And that's what sets it off. Next thing you know, you got these killings from somebody. We don't know if it's Jason, because Jason is supposed to be dead. And as the film goes on, we see a hockey mask killer. But this time, the hockey mask is different. One, and throughout most of the films was Jason. This part of the mask, why am I pointing as if y'all are going to see it when most of y'all are just going to hear it? So one of the right side, upper right part of the mask has a dent because that's where he got hit in the axe in the third film. So there's that. And then the hockey mask that Jason wears in the series has red stripes on cheeks. This one is a completely I guess you could say new mask with blue stripes on the cheeks. So it's not the same mask, and it's an imposter, really. The imposter's name is Roy. People like Tom Morga, who I might meet later on in Big Texas Terror. I don't for sure know. I know he is having by the way, this is already going to end. This is going to be released way after Big Texas Terror happened. So I'll give you all an update way after that. But to the point, Tom Morga has always been argued, does he play Jason or does he not? He claims that he's not Jason, that he plays Roy. However, he kind of plays Jason in the hallucinations that Tommy has. But it's Roy that is killing all these people. Roy turns out to be the father of Joey. I guess he just wanted revenge, but it's some of that storyline never really made sense. You get what I mean? People are like, how does he know? Because they mentioned in when they're with the coroners that Joey's been in the system since he was a kid. He never knew his father. His father ran out on Joey's mom when Joey was born. So maybe the father kind of stayed behind in the shadows just to like, I don't know. It never made sense. That's why most people were a bit iffy on it. But even though like they don't pay attention to the story, they kind of like people kind of put part five in like one of their favorite Friday the 13th films of all time. It's still pretty cool. It has some pretty gnarly kills. Like this girl gets like, man, what do you call those like long clippers through the eyes? That's like I think the more famous one of them all. This dude gets speared in a outhouse, which is
Yeah.
which is one place you don't want to get speared, by the way. You get a black kid in this film and you think the black kid's gonna die, but nah, he survives. Not the first black person to survive a horror film. The first one goes to Kincaid from part three of Nightmare on Elm Street until the next movie when they killed him off. He was actually the first one to get killed off in the next movie. Yeah. But Tommy survives. I guess the house mother, I guess you can say. Well, I forgot. I don't know what her name is. Like I barely paid attention to this one. I think it's like, to be honest, it's one of my least favorite. And I'll be honest with you guys, the Friday the 13th series isn't really like my favorite series. It's not like Halloween and stuff like that. But I mean, there are some movies I do like part two, six, and even the remake. Even part four, I enjoy. But it's not like my favorite of them all. So I don't remember too much. I hardly watched them during Halloween times. I know I'm beating the dead horse with you guys, but I know many of y'all are fans of the series, and I'm happy for y'all that y'all have a film or hobby you like to go back to. So trying to keep up with the positives. I don't remember too much of these films. Even like most of the hardcore fans don't remember.
Hey, it's not
What
anybody's
were you
fault.
saying?
There's just so many films to go through. There's like 12 films, you know? And again, you're right. Choice doesn't apply to everybody. Like you could sit here and say you love 2, 1, 3, and 4 and 5. But after that, everything goes down the drain. And some people will say, well, I actually think part 8 is the best one. And when we go into that one, that's gonna be crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's always a pick and choose kind of series with this franchise. Like you can choose which ones you like, and you can forget about the other ones. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like I'm probably gonna forget lots of things if we talk about, say part 7. Even though I think part 7 is a really good film, I just have not been able to sit down and watch it for a very long time. So some things I remember, but some things I just don't.
Yeah, it's the same here. But anyway, they did take down Roy. Roy dies, and then they explain everything. Tommy is still having hallucinations, and then the house mother, she walks in like Tommy's hospital room, and then it ends with like Tommy wearing the mask and holding a knife, and then we don't know what happens after that because it goes on to a different story with a different Tommy. I forgot the actor's name. I know it's this. I know it's Tom. Tom is he's considered like the better grown up Tommy than the other actor, but obviously people love Corey Feldman as Tommy a lot more. But this actor, and the reason being is because there are fan films out there called the Never Hike series that has that's like they're short Friday the 13th films, and they get the Tommy from the sixth film and the supporting characters from the sixth film into those short films. So that's pretty like you gotta look it up. It's called Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, and I forgot the last one, but they're all like Never Hike. That's what it's called, which I think is a really good title. You know, going away from Friday the 13th into a whole different title. But part 6 is, and this is where we get Supernatural Jason for the first time. Part 6 is like Tommy, like he still doesn't believe Jason's dead, even though he's technically been dead, I believe, for maybe 6 years. I'm if I can remember. And he's resurrected, believe it or not, at midnight, supposedly at midnight on Friday the 13th. And what happens was Tommy gets I wouldn't say a spear. It's like, you know how like when you go to those, yeah, you see those fences, then they look like spears. That's what it was. It was a rod, I guess you can say. And like just like he's poking Jason's corpse as if like he's not dead, which he was. But then it was a lightning night, so lightning strikes that rod that was in Jason's body, and Jason comes back to life. Here he's played by C.J. Graham, which I actually enjoy. I think he's a really cool Jason, mostly because I think he's a ex-Marines, and so he uses like that Marine skill in his Jason, which is like what I like about like every actor who's played him. They're like, no, they're like it doesn't give you the same old Jason every film. It gives you like a different interpretation, even though it's the same character chronologically. But they put their own twist into it. Like I said, Ted White was a stuntman. He was very built, and Derek Mears was also very built. But was Ted White because he's been in the industry longer? He uses that like I guess you could say like what he knows in the industry. I can't think of a word right now, but anyway, a technique or skill. That's what I meant to say. He uses his technique or skills as a stuntman. Tom Morga, same thing too. Like I said, Tom Morga played Michael Myers, Leatherface. I guess you could say Jason, though technically Roy, but he played Michael Myers and Leatherface only in opening sequences of a Texas Chainsaw and a Halloween movie, but they eventually recasted other folk. But anyway, with this one, it's basically like town renamed itself like from Crystal Lake to something else because they don't want to be no longer they don't want to be associated with the history of Camp Crystal Lake and what Crystal Lake was known for. They're opening up another camp, which for some reason is still on Crystal Lake, and it's still called Camp Blood. You get a whole new set of counselors, and then you just get random folks that are getting killed. And Jason does get his hockey mask because I think Tommy held on to it for such a long time. But dude, the kills are gnarly. Like there's like how Jason gets his weapon is some dude was just like hacking away, which shows you how a machete actually is. Machetes are dull. Like they are not that sharp as people as especially these movies are trying to make it out to be. They are super dull. Like you mainly use those just to like if you're in a very wooded and leafy area, you use those to get out of your way. But it takes a long time trying to hack your way out of everything. And that's what this film kind of shows you. But again, you get what's the word I'm looking for? Suspension of disbelief. You can use that in these series, which I do like. But how Jason got the machete was he grabbed the dude's arm, and then like I don't know what happened. The dude just ends up flying. I guess like a branch to the face, and then you just see a smile of blood on that tree bark where he hit his face, and then Jason like has the machete, but he also has the dude's arm in it. It's just a very funny sequence. But yeah, there's also what's his face, musician. Alice Cooper does music for this film, and I think it's really cool. I love Alice Cooper, especially like
I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
like,
no, he
making
does
music for it.
Yeah, he does the music. I think that's why I kind of like it too, because they used "Teenage Frankenstein," which is one of his famous songs back in the 70s.
Oh,
Yeah, but yeah, he does one called "He's Back," which obviously means Jason's back. But yeah, Tommy Jarvis says like the only way to stop Jason is to take him back to his resting place, which wasn't the grave; it was the lake. So yeah, so Tommy like ties a boulder around like Jason's neck and then drowns Jason. I mean, there's a lot more to it. There were kids in this film. That's the thing. This was the first Friday the 13th film that actually was like, now we got kids in the mix, like actual kids, like campers. Jason doesn't kill any of them. I think he just wanted to put fear in them until to the point where he would kill them, but we don't for sure know.
there's a theory about that I have.
Oh, what was that?
So I'm gonna be brief here. But you know how I used to joke around with you guys and said that I like to view Jason as like this moral judge, where if all the counselors are basically committing these unholy acts before matrimony, I mean, he's out there to say, well, I am the enforcer. I'm going to execute y'all because you sinned. Whereas the kids, they're young. So as long as they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, he's like, no, I'm going to give y'all a free pass.
Okay, so it just reminded me of something. I think it was like a clip from Robot Chicken. Now, again, I'm going to be beating a dead horse here on this one. I'm not a big fan of Robot Chicken, guys. I know there are so many fans of y'all, and I love Seth Green as well. But what I was going to show you this video too, and I forgot to send it to you. I think it was like Jason's like going in this house, and like you see like all these kids that are like they look like they're about to like like be doing drugs and drinking, and then of course premarital coitus, but he stops when like the guys are like, you know what, let's not be like this. Let's read our Bible and sing hymns. And then Jason's like, ugh. And then he walks away like he's like, man, I really wanted to kill them. So yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, so that's pretty much like how, but going back to part 6, that's how it ends. Tommy drowns Jason. And by the way, I think there's like a lake somewhere in the Midwest. Somebody put a statue of Jason at the bottom of the lake, and you can like scuba dive. By the way, yeah, it's that deep to the point where you have to scuba dive. Yeah, to the lake. Because, dude, it gets dark. As cool as that looks, I know I'm going to scare myself if I try to go down there. And the first thing I see is Jason. It's like the statue of Jason. But yeah, anyway, like somebody did that. Tommy survives. The sheriff's daughter survives. The sheriff doesn't survive. The sheriff dies ugly in this one. Like he gets folded to death. Not like with Freddy versus Jason, but almost close. Part 7 is actually when we get Kane Hodder as Jason. And he carries on for the next 3 films. Or yeah, was it part 7, part 8, Goes to Hell, X. Okay, yeah. So anyway, part 7 is they call it Jason versus Dollar Store Carrie because the main the main actress or the main character has a telekinesis, just like Carrie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be saying, guys, it's the same thing. It's like kids go to a camp, they get killed by Jason. Jason gets resurrected because I guess the girl accidentally resurrects her with her mind powers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's also considered the queer Friday because a lot of the actors and actresses were either openly or closeted gay at the time. And I mean, like 95% of the actors. I mean, like you gotta look it up too. Even the final boy is gay, but I think he was closeted at the time because this was still the 80s.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing, but I think it's pretty cool. It's different. It's the only Kane Hodder Jason I actually do like because the other ones, oh my gosh. Part 8 is Jason Takes Manhattan. Here's the thing. There's only like a 5-second clip they shot in Manhattan because everything else was shot in, I believe, Toronto. So the idea was to get Jason out of Crystal Lake for the very first time, which I tip my hats off. That's something new. The execution was just bad. They've had like so many child versions of Jason in this one and they don't match. There is a final girl, but I don't remember her name. But like the kills are the only thing that's memorable. Like some dude gets like a hot rock to the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
This girl gets killed by like sharp glass and somebody gets thrown off of like, I guess a ladder and lands on spikes.
Was it the building? Like, what wasn't one of them like having like he knew kung fu or something?
Oh, about the boxing thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he gets his head punched off by Jason. Dude. Okay, yeah. So like the kills are the only thing I give it for, but the storyline is like, and then it ends with like apparently the sewers in New York get flooded like at midnight every day. And it gets flooded with like toxic waste. And then Jason just gets caught in the act. And then for some reason goes back to looking like a normal boy, or at least a little boy. Yeah. So there's a reason why I skipped a lot on this one. One, we're like way already past an hour. And two, I don't really like this one. I also don't like the next one, which was Jason Goes to Hell. Don't get me wrong. I like Kane Hodder as Jason, but other than part 7, his movies, I'm not even a huge fan of X, to be honest with y'all. And I know X is like the super fun one everybody loves, but I could never get into it. So like to my point, Jason Goes to Hell again was supposed to be the final Friday. Again, not the final Friday because it goes into lore where basically like turns out Jason is actually a demon, but apparently it's in universe with the Evil Dead because the Necronomicon, which is the book in the Evil Dead, is seen in part 9. And like what's his name? Like the black guy in the film who Dukes, who supposedly knows everything about Jason in the Voorhees lore, says like this demon needs to inherit a host of a living Voorhees. And that's the thing. Jason, like the Jason we know isn't in this film because he's like possessing everybody. And every time he hops from one body to another, the previous body gets disintegrated or melted, something. So yeah, it's just a weird storyline. The kills, some of the kills are very interesting. They only have like one Camp Crystal Lake scene, but it's like with 3 people and it's a tent. But that's pretty much it. It's just basically Jason looking for surviving members of his family so he can take control of them. But it turns out this blade has to stab Jason by the last living relative, which I believe was like his niece or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he goes to hell, but at the end, you see the hockey mask in the dirt. Well, we see Freddy Krueger's claw come up, grab the mask, and then take it back to hell. Here's the thing. That wasn't a Robert Englund. That was Kane. That was Kane Hodder. So technically, Kane also played Jason. And then we get to Jason X, which unexplainably, until we get to Freddy versus Jason, unexplainably, Jason is somehow alive. They're saying like he has regeneration power. They changed the lore so much in this time. That's why I lose interest after 7.
That's why we accept it as Freddy vs. Jason is simply the prequel. Because, it does make sense when if you watch Freddy vs. Jason right after 9, it makes a whole lot of sense. Because by that point, he went to hell in the 9th film. So it makes sense for him to literally come out from the ground as how that film starts.
Yeah. So Jason X, and this is where again, I know y'all love Jason X, and that, again, I'm not trying to like shit on your movie or whatever. If you love the film, that's on you. I'm like, because you know me, I'm a cinephile. I gotta be careful with the words that have file in it, to be honest with y'all. But ever since like I gotten into like a lot more filmmaking techniques, I think like my nostalgia just kind of went lower and lower and lower. I get it's fun. It's a camp, like no pun intended. It's a campy movie. It's fun. Like they knew what the kind of movie they were making. That's why I get why people love it. And it does have some insanely kills, which I'll explain in a bit. Jason X is obviously like the well-known Jason goes to space 400 years after, I guess, Freddy versus Jason. Like he's frozen in carbonite. Not really. I had to say that, guys. One of these days I had to say that. But no, he gets frozen with this one girl. I guess she worked for the government or whatever. Well, she accidentally gets frozen with Jason, and then 400 years later, Earth is inhabited. These space explorers, I guess you can say they're human. They find them. They accidentally release, and it's funny how Jason resurrects. He resurrects with the sound of, again, what do you think? Two kids, you know, having premarital. I'm gonna say actually to be funny, they're having premarital sex, and that's how Jason wakes up.
That's what's so funny. That's why I kept telling you, like, he must be like the executioner when he knows that that's not happening. He's like, nope.
Yeah. So, and we get the most famous kill in this film. It's definitely like I would say top 5 of like best kills in the series, where he gets this one girl's head, shoves it in liquid nitrogen, it freezes, then he just like smashes the head on the on the surface, and then yeah, she dies. Then he finds like a very interesting like a futuristic version of his machete. Then he just starts killing people, and then like they're trying to explain like how, Jason is pretty much a wanted man. Like he's killed in universe over 200 people, and they tried killing Jason, but I mean obviously Jason's indestructible, and he became even more indestructible when his corpse mixes with I guess nanonites, you could say. It becomes Uber Jason, like half robot at Jason, and that's where I'll be honest with you. Even before I started getting into film, when I saw this movie for the first time, I get y'all thought Uber Jason was cool because he looked like a Power Ranger. I'll be honest with you guys, I got turned off by that, and I still kind of do. It just looked weird to me, but it has its fans. But it just ends with Jason along with some other guy flying into Earth 2, and supposedly that kills him. And it actually ends with the most famous, which means kill Ma. It's something we never talked about, but it's technically a score without much music. It just says, but that's pretty much the Kane Hodder versions of Jason. But I'm going to take another break right now because I do want to check something real quick. But we'll finish it off with Freddy versus Jason because I want to dive more into that one because that's also one of my favorite ones. And then the remake. And then who knows where this franchise will go. So we're going to take a break real quick. Okay, now we are back. So we're going to talk about Freddy versus Jason and Friday the 13th, like the remake. Because I'm not going to lie, if Jason X, let's just say it this way, if the Jason movies ended with Jason X, I wouldn't have a sour mouth or a sour taste in my mouth. I think I would have just been like, okay, I guess. But I mean, we got some fans of Jason X, so to them, it would have been all right. But if it had ended with Jason Goes to Hell or Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, everybody's going to be like, dude, like, why didn't you give Jason like a proper ending? You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like, the reason why I say we're going to talk deep into this is because I'm probably not going to talk too much about the Jason side of the next movie. I'm probably going to be talking about more of Robert Englund's side or Freddy's side for a lot of reasons. So, okay, Freddy versus Jason was the ultimate matchup. It was like, I mean, the marketing for this film, I kid you not.
Like did you see the previews? Like do you ever see it on YouTube? It's like you know how when what is it, UFC or boxing, when they're about to do something for Las Vegas, and they always introduce the fighters, and like they have sometimes a Q&A. That's exactly the same thing they did with Freddy and Jason. I think they did it in Las Vegas, so they actually had them appear. Robert Englund had appeared, and well, I forget who the actor was for Jason.
Ken Kirzinger.
Ken Kurtzinger, thank you. They both appeared in costume, and they just mimicked the whole thing of the whole. Let's see how much they weigh. Let's see what their abilities are. How many kills they've done in their franchise. It's very funny.
Which is like, and here's the sad part is that Freddy doesn't have as many kills as Jason. Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't mention this. Ken Kurtzinger played. I guess he could say like dine-in or a restaurant worker in Jason Takes Manhattan. Like you'll see him like. When he barges into a restaurant, he like throws him over the counter. We don't know if that's a kill or not. It could have been. Jason's pretty strong, especially like if we're talking about Kane Hodder's Jason. But a little backstory is that like fans, and let's get this, and let's all be clear. We are still good with Ken Kirzinger as Jason. He does it pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
but y'all knew this was coming, but we all still wanted Kane Hodder.
Oh, yeah.
And we still kind of do want Kane Hodder. It's kind of too late because Kane Hodder is old and Robert Englund's old too. So that's just, and the thing was Freddy versus Jason is they wanted somebody a little bit taller because Kane, I believe, is 6'2", and Ken Kirzinger is, I believe, 6'5" or 6'6", and they wanted somebody that doesn't look too built either. So that's why they wanted to recast somebody different, and they had so many problems writing the script. They couldn't come up with an idea to the point where they're like, okay, let's just do this. Let's have, because technically Freddy was like the main villain of this film, even though, yeah, it's called Freddy versus Jason. Freddy was the mastermind. The plot is basically Freddy. People have forgotten Freddy. And I guess you could say he's fading. He's in hell, but his memory is fading. He doesn't want to be forgotten. So somehow he's able to have Jason get resurrected and pretending to be Jason's mother. And it's not, I believe, Betsy Palmer. It's not Betsy Palmer anymore. It's some random actress. I don't know what her name is, but he pretends to be Jason's mother, saying, go to Elm Street. The kids over there are acting worse than the camp counselors that caused your drowning. Basically, what it is Freddy is using Jason to kill people, and to people saying, oh my gosh, Freddy's back, when obviously, Jason's doing all the killing. And then, like, again, you get the most famous kill in this scene, which is like this dude, he gets stabbed through the bed like multiple times, but he's kind of still breathing. So what Jason does is he grabs the beds and like just folds him in there. And dude, I was like, wow, that's like the most gnarliest kill you could ever start off with this series.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that like Jason doesn't really like he's kind of like a zombie in a way. And I don't mean like corpse like, I mean like in the lore, zombies don't have a conscience. You get what I mean? They just know to do one thing. And for Jason, he just knows to kill. He doesn't know when to leave. If he gets the act of killing of one person, he wants to continue on doing that. And that's what ticks Freddy off, is that like Freddy enjoys killing, I think, a lot more than Jason. I think he enjoys killing a lot more than all.
He likes to mess with his victims before he kills them. That's the thing. And Jason just kills them for whatever. He doesn't sit there. He's like, that's it.
Yeah. That's that's how it usually goes. Which I know I keep saying this, but I'm still saying it. If anybody out there still wants to do a Freddy Krueger film, I have an open availability for that. I would so be down to doing that. So that's kind of hard. That I'm not saying it's hard because like it's a well-known franchise. I'm saying it's hard because like if you're tasked with making, a franchise that big or doing a film of a franchise that big, like specifically like Freddy Krueger, because that's like the one people are waiting for the most. It's like you're either gonna shoot for success or drop the ball. And when you drop the ball, you are like, yeah, you don't want to show your face anywhere.
Like Warner Brothers or Paramount, whatever happens out of this deal, hire this man.
Yeah. After that pitch meeting, to my point, going back to it, like Freddy Krueger is just like, I can't have Jason. Jason's taking away all the fun. So he has Jason tranquilized. And this is where like people kind of got turned off about the film, was because apparently Jason is afraid of water, which if you've ever watched any of the movies, he's gone into water. He's walked into water. In part 9, I'm pretty sure he's walked the sea floor all the way to Manhattan. So I don't know what's happening. They're because it's pretty much like you could tell like they couldn't figure out like how to go from point A to B. And I'm not gonna like be hard on them too much because even I have problems. I know where point A starts and where point B ends. Getting there is the problem, because it's like it's not only that you just have to go to point A and B. It has to fit well with the story and it has to make sense, which I guess goes to fitting the story.
I want to say something because I think the director of this film actually answered that question. Because a lot of us were always saying, well, he was in water for so many times in these films. Why is he now just afraid of water? And I think what he tried to say was, or at least show it through the picture, was he's not afraid of water per se. It's more of the fear of drowning.
Maybe it could be that, which is, I think, the director of this film, but I think
like Ronnie
Yu. He also directed Bride of Chucky, which is when we got the introduction of Tiffany Valentine. So he's done 2, technically 3, if you're thinking about it, IPs. even though he's done those two famous horror films, I say technically three is because, you got the Friday series and you got the Nightmare series put into one movie. And obviously you got the Child's Play films. No, guys, I'm not going to do a Child's Play film because those films scare the shit out of me sometimes, even though I do like Brad Dourif as an actor. Anyway, the kids are trying to figure out, like, how do we stop both Freddy and Jason? Because when you're awake, you're killed by Jason, but if you're asleep, you're haunted and eventually killed by Freddy. Which, one thing I didn't like about this film, because I do like this film, but there's some like stuff I don't like, which is Freddy doesn't get a lot of kills in this film. He only gets the one kill from that one dude who makes that thing that says Freddy's back, which obviously they try to do a clever wordplay on this, but I don't know. I think he should have got more kills. It would have been a better send-off for Robert Englund, because this was the last time he's ever done Freddy Krueger. This is the last time he's ever played Freddy Krueger. Like, if he somehow comes back to play Freddy Krueger again, which is hard because Robert Englund is near 80 years old, you have to do something creative. Like, my idea would have been, like, have Freddy disguised as an old man, and that old man being Robert Englund. That's how I would do it, in a way of, like, having, Robert technically play Freddy one last time, but also, like, give a reason why there's an old man there. So that's where I would go. That's where I would lean in if I want to bring back Robert. But anyway, to the film, their idea was, okay, I have an idea. They decided to take these drugs, and I forgot what the asylum was called, but it's in part 3 of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Trip? No, I'm trying
It's
to
like
remember.
West something. What? Weston Hills, yeah.
Weston Hills.
Yeah, it was Weston Hills, but what was it? Freddy possessed some kid and, like, drowned he flushed all the pills.
The hypnocell, that was the drug.
Hypnocells, yes. It was like, yeah, he flushed down the hypnocell so the kids wouldn't, like, have dreams, because you can go to sleep, but you won't have dreams when you take those pills. And then his other idea was to, like, have a whole bunch of drugs on Jason, to the point where, like, yeah, Freddy and Jason are first fighting in the dream world, but then when they go all the way to Crystal Lake, which I know the math or the mapping is weird, because supposedly, like, not Haddonfield, that's a different IP, guys. Springwood? Yeah, Springwood.
Yeah, Springwood.
Okay, guys. Okay, first of all, Springwood and Springfield. You kind of get the point where I was like, which one is which again? But Springwood, I believe, is in Illinois or Idaho or something. Like, literally, I think it's in the Midwest. And Crystal Lake is supposed to be in New Jersey, and they went there in like 8 hours. So again, some people were like having like, how did they get to here or there? I don't really pay attention to that. Sometimes I can say maybe Crystal Lake is not really in New Jersey, but they never officially confirmed it. But they go to Crystal Lake, and then we actually get the showdown in real life when Laurie, the final girl in this film, grabs Freddy from the dream world and brings him back to the real world. And then, yeah, we get the fight of Freddy versus Jason. And in the real world, Jason has the upper hand, because, like, Freddy's hasn't really experienced a real world fight probably since Nancy, to be honest with y'all, because in the dream world, he had control. And obviously that control isn't there anymore. He's not as supernatural as he thinks, even though there are things that in the real world Freddy can do. But I feel like he had all that power in the dream world, where if he's not in the dream world anymore, that power is not there anymore.
Well, unless you count New Nightmare, but it's a whole different
story. Oh yeah, maybe. If they did New Nightmare, a sequel to New Nightmare, that would actually be really cool. But actually it could. Where are you? Paramount, reach me out. I think I could give you an idea for another New Nightmare, because it will play well now that Wes Craven is no longer with us anymore. It's been almost 11 years since he passed away, and like the purpose of New Nightmare was that he wrote the script to contain the Freddy Krueger demon. Well, now that Wes Craven's no longer around, and I think there was a short film about that with the actor who played Heather Langham's son, but the character, I mean, they did a short film about that. I think it's called Dylan's New Nightmare. I think y'all should check it out, especially you, Jesus.
It's on YouTube?
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. That, or you would have to go to a website, which is where the same company that did the Never Hike series, but I'll try to find it. But y'all should definitely check it out. But yeah, told you we're probably going to do a lot more with Freddy than with Jason on this part. But we know how this film ends. They legit almost fight to the death, and to the point where Freddy he gets decapitated, not by Jason but by Laurie. But then Jason comes out of the water, technically victorious. I say technically, holding Freddy's head, but Freddy's head is technically still alive. And of course, that's the last time we ever saw Robert Englund as Freddy. Again, whoever's gonna do another one, like somehow give us Robert Englund back, but in a more creative way, you know? Because it's like it to me, it wouldn't feel right just to automatically have a new actor. I feel like you should have a new actor and Robert Englund in the same film, kind of like what they did with Nick Castle and James Jude Courtney. Even though Nick Castle was only there in the Halloween 2018 for like the window scene, I believe. But I feel like it's more of like, let us take in Robert Englund one last time. That way he can technically pass it on to the next actor, and they're going to continue more of those films. I guess you can say.
Hey, don't give out the whole details. Remember, you gotta wait, see if they hire you for that.
Yeah, but anyway, that's pretty much like how it ends. And for a while, we didn't get either or until like the era of horror remakes. Now, for disclaimer, I like Jackie Earle Haley, and his Freddy Krueger was not bad. It's just the script writing was the problem, and the filmmaking. It was too much like the original, and the fact that they had, dare I say it, Freddy Krueger play somebody that could have been on the island. I mean, yeah, dare I say that?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, so it just never felt right, and it feels weird. Like even when you're rooting for the actual Freddy Krueger, who was a child murderer, child predator is a whole different. It's a whole different thing. But we had that. But the year before, we had the remake. The remake is literally the first four films, the first four Friday the 13th films into one film. And Derek Mears, oh my gosh, Derek Mears as Jason literally is terrifying. Now, when the film came out, not a lot of people liked it, but then it's like one of those things where like through time, it becomes that sleeper hit, where like people constantly watch it over and over again. And then they watch the other films. They're like, you know what? It's not actually that bad because I think it's like, people thought like it was going to be like a remake, like an actual remake, but I think this is a better remake of a film than other remakes do. Because other remakes, they try to like 100%, they try to recreate almost every shot, put like certain lines, and stuff like that. With this one, it's like, no, let's put the first four films and a lot of TNA. Y'all can look up what TNA means because this series is full of them into this film. And yeah, so basically it's like Clay, that's played by Jared Padalecki. Jared Padalecki is known for playing Sam Winchester on Supernatural. He's looking for his sister. His sister is thought to be dead because, like, she's shown in the opening, not really the opening scene, because the opening scene is like a remake of the first film, except instead of Alice, it's one of the camp counselors that escaped. Supposedly, like in this remake universe, Jason's mom kills all the camp counselors for the drowning of Jason, except one. It could be like their version of Alice, but she gets the upper hand and obviously decapitates Mrs. Voorhees. Jason turns out to be alive, but like the voice of his mother is in his mind and she's saying kill for mother. And then many years later, I think her name is Amanda, if I'm not mistaken, in the remake, but it's been a while. I think Amanda and her friend, let's go with Amanda for now. And then when you guys call me out later on, I'll be like, look, I was trying to remember the name. I know it began with an A. But Amanda and her friends and her boyfriend were looking for marijuana, and turns out to be in the same area where Jason grew up. Her friends and her boyfriend get killed by Jason, and Jason actually has like the sack head or the potato sack, but it's not like loose. You could say how Steve Dash's was. It's actually like very tight on his head. That actually makes it more terrifying. When you watch the film, you know what I mean.
Hey, you were absolutely spot on with her name,
Amanda.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was a big check. Oh, I mean, that was a big like jump. But yeah, Amanda survives, but we all thought Amanda dies because like Jason runs at her with like a machete. But anyway, Clay
Actually, my bad. Look, I'll be honest. Okay, so this is my fault. My bad, fam. So Amanda gets killed. It's Whitney that
Whitney,
the sister.
Okay. Oh, right. Amanda was Whitney's friend. Okay, I think that's what it was. Okay, so that's what I said. Whitney is like being held captive by Jason because she kind of resembles Jason's mother. Anyway, Clay is looking for Whitney, but Clay finds another group of teenagers or college kids, however you say it, that are going to like one of their family's lake houses. And then turns out Jason is actually near that area and starts killing everybody else, including Danielle Panabaker, who people thought was going to survive because she wasn't like what you can say like the types of girls that get killed in these films. Mm-hmm. The types of girls that get killed in these films are the ones that are technically topless. And you get a lot of those in these series, like the ones that party and like to hook up. she wasn't any of that. She was just like a helpful friend. And I think that's where the twist comes in, is like, you wouldn't think that that's the type of person that would die in the Friday the 13th film, but apparently they went there. And Jason does get the hockey mask in this film. I think he gets it from a different victim. I forgot.
He like collects things, right? Like he has a lot of things in his shed and he collects them.
Yeah,
It's the mask that he has on there.
yeah. So that's, I think that's how Jason gets Jason gets the mask. But yeah, I mean, dude, just Jason, I swear, this is why people like Derek Mears and Ted White more. It's because of how brutal he looks. And the thing is that Derek Mears, the reason why he wanted to play Jason is because he looked up to him, because Derek Mears has alopecia. For those that don't know, alopecia is a disease, or I think it's a disease where like your immune system fights back so much, you begin to lose body hair. And I mean, all kinds of body hair, like eyebrows, eyelashes, facial hair, top of your head, pretty like you have no body hair. And apparently, like, body hair is supposed to be helpful for your health. But yeah, he used to get made fun of as a kid. But when he saw Jason, who had a deformity, he's like, I want to play that character. And, you know, it came true. And yeah, he's a pretty brutal Jason, and a very scary Jason. Just like the way he was directed and the way he was lit. That's what made people really like, yeah, that's a Jason, all right. That is a Jason that we should all be terrified. And I 100% agree. I might meet him like in a couple of weeks. Who knows? I do get paid that weekend. I'm probably also working that weekend. So I'm probably going to be like, all right, I got to go like in the morning before I go to work. That's how I'm probably going to have to end up doing. But anyway, Clay finds Whitney. They both escape. And then here's the thing. Jason isn't supernatural on this one. He's just, again, a tough guy. But he's actually very like killable. Like you can actually kill him. They tangle like a chain around his neck. Throw the chain, I think, in a wood chipper to like strangle him. But then Whitney also stabs him with a machete, and then they dump his body in Crystal Lake. And then as they were about to walk away, Jason comes out from the dog and grabs Whitney, and that's how it ends. And we never got a sequel to that, mostly because of the lawsuit. The lawsuit, I believe, was who actually owns the Jason property and the title property. And that's been going on for way over a decade. Now, we do have the show coming out. So I don't know how, like, what they can do now, because I think Victor Miller owns a lot of the rights now. But
yeah, I think Victor Miller owns, I believe Victor Miller owns Jason, owns the character, but Sean S. Cunningham and whoever else represents him owns the trademark. So they own Friday the 13th. So it's like Victor, if he wants to continue, he can make more Jason, which is hence why they're now calling it Jason Universe, because they can't call it in name Friday the 13th anymore.
yeah, but I mean, it hasn't been Friday the 13th for a long time. But
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what they can be? I know they already casted or they're probably casting, or in the midst of casting, this one person that's supposed to play like a younger Jason. But I don't know what they're going to do. Apparently, they're going to do like, I think what they're going to do is like a back and forth kind of a situation with this series, where it's like on what we go back and forth different timelines, like going back to the 1950s, either 57 or 58, and then going back to, I guess, like, I don't know, like 10, 12 years later. I don't know what they're doing with this series.
I will say that I think they don't really have an issue. I think the only issue they have is just, I mean, it's not an issue. Don't name it Friday the 13th. I mean, you already did that with Jason X. Jason Goes to Hell. So just keep naming it Jason, whatever. But I don't think they have the right to use the mask. So the only solution you have is just make it Jason from part 2. He's got the sackcloth and all the other, overall stuff. Just that's Jason now. And fans who grew up with it can say, oh yeah, we're going back nostalgic now. We're going back to the second one. But I know other people now are just going to say, well, that's not who he is. He always has the mask. So it can go both ways. We have to see how all this happens. Who knows? Now with Warner Brothers getting into all this mess and, now having to figure out where those go, if Paramount owns it, who knows if Paramount can even meet? Because remember, Sean Cunningham was technically with Paramount all this time. So who knows? What if this turns out to be okay? It's very possible that Paramount and Sean can actually reach some sort of agreement with Miller to bring it all full circle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens, but If it comes out this year, then I'll definitely watch it. I'll probably talk about it, but I don't know for sure. Just because, like, because I am still gonna end, I'm probably gonna end the season in a couple of weeks. So, in probably a month of this recording, actually. And it's so weird how like I'm going it literally from, and this is how my plan is. It's from because I have the episode that I recorded now. I'll just talk about it now because it'll already be released. It's the YouTube reaction videos I watch. Yeah, as soon as hearing this for the first time, you'll understand what I mean later when it gets released. But it's that one, this episode. I'm planning on doing an Oscars episode after this, and then I'll probably do a Scream episode, and then weirdly enough, I'm gonna do an Easter episode, which will end until we come back in the fall. But I might do a bonus episode in the summer. Either we're gonna talk about the Odyssey, which is technically what might go, or we're just gonna be like, yeah, that's what we saw in the summer, and now we'll get back to the next season in about a month or two. It just depends. But I have a whole bunch of ideas. I know I came up with one a long time ago, but I've forgotten so much about it that I'll probably move it to the next season. But who knows? I might finally get a chance to actually get a real studio this time. Because
Nice.
yeah. And it'll be funny because as soon as I got some fun ideas for next season, and it's going to be involving you reacting to videos that I watch a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes. But I think you, me, and probably my friend Esteban, we'll probably do a Odyssey episode because I want to watch the Odyssey. And I definitely, since we already talked about Oppenheimer, might as well talk about that.
I gotta read the Odyssey before this movie hits again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know it's gone under some controversy with supposedly.
Yeah, historical accuracy and all that. Yeah,
and
it's
supposedly
a given though. I mean, this is literally like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say this. Yes, it's being hit with some historical inaccuracy, but let's be honest. This was written by what dude? Was it written by Homer? We don't know that. We just were told, and whatever records we have uncovered of mentioning of the Odyssey, who knows if it was even Homer who actually owns authorship, because they could have just been one story passed down from generation to generation to generation, and then somebody had the audacity, or sorry, the intellect, not audacity, to write what he heard. So you know what I mean? Like, you could always argue like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I can have so far for this season. And I think it's kind of funny how like I'm doing like YouTube horror, Oscars, another horror, and then we're talking about Jesus the next episode. It's kind of a funny transition, but and I probably will get more spiritual with this one. I haven't done it in a long time, but that's all I have. I think this might actually be our longest episode, but so far it's unedited, so who knows? It might break Halloween's record, or Halloween will be remaining. But anyway, you guys have a great night, day, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Yeah, don't go camping in the woods. Bye.
Have a good one.
All right. Hi, if you like our content and want to get more content, please follow us on Instagram at Tough Love Pictures, along with our YouTube under Tough Love Pictures.